United Way of Delaware recently joined state and education officials to launch a campaign to improve students' reading rates by the third grade. It's called the Delaware Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Here to give us a better understanding of the campaign is Michelle Taylor, President and CEO of the United Way. She's our first person this week. Welcome.
Thank you.
So first, let's talk about in Delaware, 52% of students read on grade level by the end of third grade.
That's right.
But that's not the case for low-income students in about 17 zip codes across the state. Can you tell us what are some of the reasons? Because I understand it's about 37% for low-income students.
Right. Well, usually what happens is zip codes matter, right? So where kids live, right? So where they're born in truly determines, right, their outcomes. If we don't equalize or provide equity around resources. And I think that's really the big difference. So kids that are born like maybe my kids or your kids that have resources, kids, books in their home, parents reading to them, access to things, actually just get better outcomes. And so what we're trying to work on as a community is how do we ensure, right, that there's equal access and opportunities across the state.
Why the third grade? How critical is third grade literacy for a student?
Actually, the research shows that where kids are by the end of third grade is really the best predictor of where kids will end up at high school graduation and ultimately for their success. I'm not sure if you know, but up to third grade, kids learn to read and then they read to learn. And so that third grade, end of third grade mark is extremely critical to kids' success.
So tell me about this coalition. Who will lead the coalition or hold those involved accountable?
So it's interesting you say that. So we've been pleased to partner with just an array of community partners to date to build the Delaware campaign. But the leaders, right, those that's guiding it right now have been working with the governor's office, the Board of Education, Department of Education. But while I would consider us more of the convener, the collaborators, right? Because this is a plan for Delaware. And so there's so many other partners in this. This isn't one of those things that's exclusive, right? We recognize it's going to take all of us. And so great partners like the libraries, right? The Boys and Girls Clubs, Sussex Health County Promotion Downstate, parents themselves, educators, principals, superintendents, everyone can find their place in this campaign.
I'm glad you brought that up, that it takes pretty much a village for everyone, schools, nonprofits. According to Susan Bunting, Secretary of Education, she mentioned that there's a 30 million word gap.
That's right.
Between students who are, I guess, pretty much well-to-do versus, or between students who are well-to-do and disadvantaged students. So we know that it will take a lot of people to be involved. I understand there is there are a few focus areas.
Right.
One, reducing summer learning loss.
That's right.
What does that mean? How can you guys help with that?
Well, what happens in the summer that a lot of people don't know, right? Kids that come from middle income families and above, their kids usually gain 1 to 2 months of learning because they're in academic enrichment summer camps, they're taking vacations, they may be going to museums, right? The parents are still working with them versus kids that come from disadvantaged communities, they usually lose, right? 1 to 2, maybe 3 months of learning. And so then look at the gap that happens in that, right? Because they don't have access to the same resources. And so one of the programs or one of the core focuses is how do we ensure that kids that come from high need communities are also engaged in enrichment programs throughout the summer. And how do we make sure that's consistent up and down the state, which we also have to make sure not just access, but affordability. And then how do we make sure the programs actually incorporate that literacy component?
Okay, and I guess that's where you come along, United Way of Delaware. You guys are working or have been working on literacy for some time. You have the Reading Angels and then my very own library program. How can people pretty much get involved?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. One, right? So we've recognized out of all the work we do, there's probably nothing as important as this initiative, right? It's the first leg, I would think, of the journey, and so we've had programs. We understand, back to Dr. Bunting's point, right? Literacy, enriched homes or environments matter. So we've been doing programs like the My Very Own Library to ensure that all kids can pick out their own books, right? Or be a reading angel. People can volunteer by coming in and just going in and reading to a child, right? Doesn't even take more than 15 minutes to be able to do that, right? To expose them not just to words and dreams and imagination, but so they can see a caring adult, you know, in their environment and in their space. And so people can always sign up on our website to be a participate in those through www.uwde.org. And as far as the campaign, you know, people should look out. We're still on the early edge, you know, early phases of this, but we'll definitely be sending out communication pieces where the community itself can get involved and engaged.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Michelle Taylor, President and CEO of the United Way of Delaware. Anyone interested to help can call the United Way directly or go online for more information, and that's uwde.org.